Police will inevitably lose patience with me because of my politics, and Judge Russo back in Strongsville, Ohio, will be inclined to do to Mackenzie what she says Mackenzie did to her boyfriend and his close friend, which is to basically smash her into a brick wall, and with an element of regression to childhood, because my politics are not what's relevant, the evidence is what's relevant. But sometimes when politics are involved, it's pointless to say anything like that. And since I got Mackenzie into this, I'd like to see if I can get her out. The politics at our work are very troubling. There was an attack by Hamas on the Rave scene in Israel, and it spread all over Israel. And a leading Israel newspaper, Haaretz, is blaming the right wing. I think that that's probably fair because the right wing has worked together with the right wing of Iran in the past. You may not like being reminded of the Iran Contra, but it was an Israeli smuggling of missiles to Iran for Reagan and the right wing of America, who don't have much sympathy for the underclass. Palestinians have long been a burden to Saudi Arabia. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on, but behind the scenes, it's the old leapfrogs. Michael Foucault met with the Ayatollah. He was a West Bank intellectual, but he was from the upper class of Europe. It's important to remember when the British talk about the public, they're talking about the private sector. So when Michael Foucault talks about protecting society, he's talking about protecting the upper class. He prepared himself all his life for an encounter with the devil to lead the sheep in the AIDS attack as an intellectual. And that's what he did. He committed suicide with a couple of other of his cronies by AIDS. So his meeting with the super moralists of the right wing of the Middle East on behalf of Reagan is just at the vanishing point in things that are in the public domain. So Hamas grabs the uh, flag of liberty leading the people at places like Colombia by making it look like they're championing the cause of Palestinians, when really they're giving the Israeli right wing an opportunity to flatten the place and preventing the future of spring that Saudi Arabia so abhors. So there's hardly an act of Martin Luther King. But ideologically, it's rule over once, rule over twice. They've kept this secret for so long. It's just another bonus attack like COVID from getting away. Iran and Israel worked together with the Reagan administration on the AIDS attack. That's common sense. It's the history of the entire situation. So when you look at the problem of the politics of the United States, behind the scenes, you're talking about Axis Hollywood, not the United States. Hamas is no more the Palestinians than Access Hollywood is the United States. We have people who are concerned, but they're covering for it with this crazy story from the Beatles, which is linked into the entire Publishers Project that turned our library system into an index funhouse of mirrors for the whole super project. It's not reasonable not to see the simpatico between Michael Foucault's meeting with the Ayatollah and then committing suicide by AIDS with the Hamas raid on the rave scene. Remember, they started with the rave scene. Nobody really believes that Israel could have had such an immense breakdown of foreknowledge about a raid of great dimension right on their for a doorstep. They have intelligence failure doesn't seem to be realistic to imagine. So you need to know who the organizers of the race scene were because they set up the target area and they're basically depopulating to part of Build Back Better, get rid of Gaza now. And they did this, the same gang can be seen standing outside the World Trade Center. Cliff Robertson went above the World Trade Center in his private plane to watch. You need to know who he is, his involvement with the Outer Limits, and portraying JFK on PT 109. You need to understand what this research means, who these people really are, before you can say that my reasoning about the research skills I bring to the table are somehow remiss. You want me to implicate the evidence about what was done to Mackenzie Shirilov. I believe that it's the other way around. They want to reproduce their grounds for attacking the rave scene, just as they poisoned an LSD that the prison correction system gave to me as a child. They poisoned Mackenzie to say if we don't, they'll destroy us with their sinful ways. And she was given a hallucinogen that caused her to seize. It was a neurohypnotic. And that's just a simple truth. And it's the same gang that pulled these things at the University of Pittsburgh. And they're notorious for praising Putin at the University of Pittsburgh. These are all the politics of Trump and Putin. They're targeting the racing. Trump isn't leading a torch of the people to protect the people of the rave scene. He's just braying for power. And Hamas doesn't represent the Arab Spring. They just represent the will to power of the right wing and on that side of the arrangements in the Middle East. And the people who are at the bottom of the spectrum are suckers and losers. That's the way they see the world. I've told you this before. Mackenzie Shirilla is a public school student. My obligation is to peers in the public schools. I try to avoid confrontations with the culture around me. I stick to myself. I didn't ask for it. I didn't go looking for it, but it was thrown in my face as a hybrid sandwich. And you expect me not to file a police complaint on her behalf? That's out of the question. I am filing a complaint on behalf of the ravers who were massacred by Hamas. But they were also set up by the Israeli government as an excuse to go in and demolish Gaza. It's like a project to build back better. One of the things I learned today, which is very interesting, was that Eisenstein has a book called Immoral Memories. But also, curiously enough, he was fascinated by Bly Sanders, I also learned today. So Bly Sanders worked behind the scenes in building an invisible smoke and mirrors for media control on behalf of the European hidden hand powers, the leapfrog oligarchs. It does indeed include Eisenstein, who was a friend of Disney, who extolled through Bugs Bunny cartoons Adolf Hitler. Cecil B. DeMille was put in charge of Radio Free Europe, a CIA fake news syndicate. It's characterized in one book I looked at today. And D.W. Griffith met with Mussolini and admired him and bragged in the papers how Mussolini seemed fascinated with him. So we know where these people have been and what they've been up to. And again, I point out one of the hybrid elements is that it comes from Strongsville. The police state is trying to control everything internationally. They've given up on Interpol. They've given up on the International Criminal Court. They've given up on the UN. What they are is an leapfrog oligarchy of people behind the scenes in maximum corruption, just terrorizing everybody and forcing them into boot camps. And the last thing in the world, the run on the rave scene was like the assassination of Woodstock. It was like a mass Kent State execution. And I don't see how anybody can miss that, because the idea that the Israelis had no prior intelligence in the movement of that many weapons into the border seems to defy common sense. So what gives? What seems to give is it's a rule over once, rule over twice. It's another one of these bonus attacks by sharks who struck and gotten away and lived to strike another day. The Ayatollah met with Gorbanov on behalf of Reagan's administration through the Israelis in a missile smuggling operation. It's not mysterious that Volkov met the Ayatollah, was studying the Iranian Revolution. It's just that the truth about it exists slightly below the radar of what's in the public domain, what's in public record. You can get the idea once you see that Foucault was part of the Ouspensky crowd of the fourth dimensionalists in Cubism who were influenced by Italian futurism and Mussolini. After all, Vici are the people in France who were allied to Adolf Hitler. That's what Thun meant when he said that Paris was the capital of Germany again. Was the Vici. Vici were the ones who got us into Vietnam. They were allies of the Japanese there. This is all an attempt to reassert the Axis powers over the United States through the backstab of Hollywood. And these people have worked together before. It's not like it's news. It's not like it's mysterious. It's just not talked about. It's not focused on. It's not understood as the central driving theme of the mission of the Trumpy-Putinese. A 50-50 power broker situation that has developed of a sort of non-aggression pact where the people on the bottom are the targets and the victims, as always, but this time it's all thought out that way. They attacked the Rave. If you want to get to the bottom of it, look into who organized the Rave.